Hello everyone and welcome to the clash you've all been waiting for. We are some 6 years away from the events of Sanremo that we've been covering for the past maybe 10 days or even maybe 2 weeks, give or take, and we finally have the big clash. Former world champion Jose Raul Capablanca versus, at the time the game was played, former world champion Alexander Alekhine. As in 1936, Alekhine lost the title to Dr. Max Uwe, and currently Max Uwe is the world champion. And I know you guys waited a lot for this one, but Capablanca waited even longer because Alekhine has successfully avoided Capablanca for some close to 10 years after beating him in a World Chess Championship match. And Capablanca just couldn't get a rematch. He couldn't even enter tournaments where Alekhine was playing, as Alekhine stipulated some severe conditions for the organizer, saying that if they invite Capablanca, that he will not play. And you just couldn't have a big chess tournament without the participation of the reigning world champion. But now Alexander Alekhine lost the title to Max Uwe, and he no longer sees an issue with him playing in the same tournament as Capablanca. And also, it was the strongest tournament, ever played. Pretty much every big tournament after, this tournament and the previous one was the strongest tournament that was ever played, because you had all the big names from before, and also with the addition of some new ones, the tournament became even stronger. And this tournament also has a very special guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is, or rather, I will tell you who it is, because I'm also going to show you a photo. 2 times Russian champion, or rather Soviet champion, 24-year-old young future world champion Mikhail Botvinnik. And here we even have a photo of this, of everyone that played in this event. I got it from Alekhine's book, and as Alekhine also made a book on the Nottingham tournament of 1936, Alekhine has a book, on pretty much everything. And not that, these are the players of the tournament. So from left to right, we have some very, very awesome players like Ruben Fine, Savely Tartakover, Dr. Milan Vidmar, Bogolyubov. I don't know who the gentleman next to Bogolyubov is. Tyler says, but I don't know who that is. Odi Alexandra, Solomon Floor, and the last 3 on the right standing are Samuel Reshevsky, young Samuel Reshevsky, Mikhail Botvinnik, 24-year-old Mikhail Botvinnik, as we've said, and AJ McKenzie. And seated are Sir G.A. Thomas, former world champion Dr. Emmanuel Lasker, former world champion Jose Raul Capablanca. I don't know who the gentleman and the misses in the middle are. Probably maybe the sponsors or the organizers, Mr. and Mrs. Derbyshire. Then we have reigning world champion Dr. Max Uwe. Seated next to him, former world champion Dr. Alexander Alekhine, and William Winter on the far right. And you can see that even here, Alekhine is sure to seat as far away from Capablanca as possible, even if it means sitting next to Dr. Max Uwe, who has just taken away his World Chess Championship title. But yeah, these were the players, and already in round 2 we have the big clash. Capablanca has the white pieces against Alekhine, and let's check it out. And also, if you guys are interested, I've never actually covered any game from the match Alekhine versus Dr. Max Uwe. It was a pretty intense match. I don't think anyone in the world thought that Uwe could actually take away the title from Alekhine, and it was a really, really close match. In the end, Alekhine got 14.5 points. Max got 15.5 points. So he won by a 1-point margin, and 13 of the games were drawn. But it was enough to take the title away from Alekhine. And Alekhine had also some other problems. It's not that he could just get to the bottom of any position. He could also get to the bottom of every bottle, as they say, and it definitely took its toll. Maybe not in the short run, or maybe not if it was a 10-game match or a 5-game match, but Alekhine and Dr. Max Uwe played 30 games, and that definitely took its toll. It's less than Alekhine played against Capablanca. Against Capablanca, 36 games were played, or maybe even 37. Yeah, obviously it's an even number. 36 games were played, and yeah, Alekhine won. But also I found this very, very interesting. The Capablanca versus Alekhine World Chess Championship match started by Alekhine winning. Alekhine won with the French defense, and then Capablanca. Okay, second game was a draw, and then Capablanca in game 3 played some sort of an Indian game, and he won with the black pieces. And after those 3 games, every game until the end of the World Chess Championship match, it was Queen's Gambit declined. Nothing else, just Queen's Gambit declined, and nothing else was played. So I have no idea why. Obviously, Capablanca said, "Okay, I lost the first game when I played e4, so I'm not gonna play e4 anymore." And yeah, that's pretty much it. And Alekhine, he would play d4 right away. But yeah, thought that was also something interesting to mention. But yeah, let's check it out, and we're going to discuss the standings after we check out this game. So let's see what Capablanca prepared, as he had almost 10 years to prepare for his next game against Alekhine. Capablanca opens again with pawn to d4. Maybe, it'd be cool if he was, honing his attack against the French and then just surprises Alekhine with e4. But no, it's a d4. We have pawn to e6 by Alekhine. He's being very cheeky here. Maybe Capablanca changes his mind, plays e4, and they go into the French. But no, Capablanca is persistent, plays, not pawn to g3. Capablanca first goes knight to f3, and now Alekhine plays pawn to f5. He challenges Capablanca to a Dutch defense with f5, and now pawn to g3 by Capablanca. We have knight to f6, bishop to g2, bishop to e7, and both players castles. So castles, and now pawn to c4. And Alekhine says knight to e4. Alekhine says that he is one of the strongest players to play this move, and that he already defeated some very, very strong players with this knight to e4 idea. He defeated Friedrich Semisch. Semisch played knight b to d2 in this position. Salomon Flohr played knight to e1. Alekhine also defeated him. Ruben Fine played queen to c2. Alekhine also defeated him. Queen to c2, in fact, is the top move recommended by the engine. So Alekhine says in his book, like I said, he covered it in his 1936 Nottingham book, and he says that, if someone has this much success with a certain line and that it wasn't really played at this level before, it should bear his name. And indeed, today, the knight to e4 line is the Alekhine line of the Fianchero Dutch defense. So, okay, and Capablanca goes for neither of these things that were played. He plays queen to b3. Okay, a very nice square for the queen. Definitely aligns the queen nicely with the king. And Alekhine says that, okay, it's an okay move. And you'll see that throughout Alekhine explaining this game in the book, he's more or less just saying that Capablanca's moves aren't all that impressive. We have bishop to f6 by Alekhine, and now rook to d1. Alekhine says that already, the weakness of the d4 pawn is being felt, and Capablanca rushes to defend it. We have queen to e8, and now knight to c3, offering a trade, and knight to c6. With knight to c6, Alekhine is inviting pawn to d5 to attack the queen with knight to a5, and this would indeed be not all that great for Capablanca. So Capablanca plays knight to b5, puts pressure on that c7 pawn, as queen to e8 has been played, and now bishop back to d8. Okay, Alekhine will first kick away the knight, and then he will bring back the bishop, and the move probably now that should be played is pawn to d5, and then maybe after knight to a5 just put the queen to d3, and you have a very, very, very nice position. Then the knight gets kicked away, for example c6, knight goes back to c3, but you did get to play d5. However, Capablanca plays queen back to c2 first. I guess he wants to play d5, and only then, making a5 not as impressive, and then, this definitely becomes a threat. So Alekhine plays pawn to d6, and now pawn to d5 by Capablanca, and Alekhine says that it would be good if Alekhine actually captured on d5. For example, captures, and then after knight b4 attacking the queen, queen to c4 only move, and then let's say a5 defends the knight, and knight g5 is already maybe somewhat difficult to play, as the knight is coming to e6, and also you will have to play bishop captures on g5. And after bishop captures, again, you have to worry about knight captures on c7, so you're going to play knight a6 to defend the pawn. And after the bishop moves, let's say rook f7, and the game continues with white definitely having a slight edge. This pawn is extremely annoying here. But after d5, Alekhine says that he will, of course, not play that. He plays knight to b4, attacks Capablanca's queen, queen back to b3, and now Alekhine just brings the knight back, knight to a6. He doesn't want to overcommit by pushing pawns with something like pawn to a5. He plays knight to a6, and now Capablanca plays d captures on e6. We have knight a to c5, attacking the queen and nicely connecting with the pawn on e6. Queen back to c2, and now knight captures on e6. And now Capablanca finally gets the other knight into the game. Knight f to d4. Again, Alekhine says that this is, trading a piece for the sake of trading a piece, that it doesn't really do anything. Bishop to e3 would be the preferred move. Now, it's hard to, analyze this as we have Capablanca playing Alekhine, and also we have to let the engine weigh in. The engine agrees with Capablanca that knight f to d4 is the best. But we've also seen instances where Alekhine criticizes, the engine, and the Alekhine is basically correct, as the top move recommended by the engine will allow for a very easy game by both players. So maybe sometimes it's better to complicate. And, from modern perspective, the engine would give that sort of to be a lesser move, when in fact it's not. But okay, knight f to d4, and now knight captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and Alekhine finally brings the bishop back, bishop to f6, and Capablanca is persistent, knight back to b5. Again, he puts pressure on that c7 pawn. Again, Alekhine says in the book that bishop to e3 is definitely preferred here. We have queen to e7, guarding the c7 pawn, bishop to e3, and now pawn to a6, finally getting rid of that knight from b5. Knight to d4, and now bishop to d7. Now, with the knight on e4 and the Capablanca's bishop not being all that impressive, Alekhine has time to develop his light square bishop and get the other rook into the game. We have rook a to c1, rook a to e8, and now pawn to b4 by Capablanca. Probably pawn to c5 was a little bit better, but to exploit b4, you really have to, you have to be clairvoyant to spot this one, because Alekhine just played pawn to b6. He didn't dwell too long on this, but g5 here would be quite a move. I will show you. I mean, it's such a disgusting line where, okay, if c5 is played, as this is your plan, you want to open up the c and d files. Pawn to f4, and now after c captures on d6, attacking the queen, c captures and queen to b3 check, king to h8, and pawn to f3. This is how black gets ahead. You will play knight captures on g3, and now after bishop to f2, as you don't want to give up your bishop as well, knight captures on e2, knight captures, queen captures, and after rook captures on d6, you will play bishop to c6, and I mean, look at this position. This is, horrible to even look at, but, the white bishop on g2 and the pawn on f3 really make it seem like it is black who's better here. It's not winning by force, but it's definitely easier to play for black. And after b4, Alekhine should have struck with pawn to g5. But he played pawn to b6, he trusted Capablanca, and now Capablanca just goes knight back to f3 and returns the favor. Here, pawn to c5 has to be played. Pawn to c5 and everything we've discussed. Captures, and you don't want to open up these lines. It's going to be too difficult. For example, if you capture, then even knight to b3, then this pawn is weak, then this pawn is weak, then this pawn is weak, and in the end you will have to worry about the passed a pawn, and that's what this game will be about. Probably it can be saved, but black will suffer immensely. So after b6, Capablanca goes knight back to f3, and now he allowed Alekhine this knight to c3 move. We have knight to c3, attacking the rook here, rook to d3, and now Alekhine, again, I have no idea what Alekhine is talking about in his book, because Alekhine says that he played pawn to f4, and that he says that it's a miscalculation of a most peculiar kind, and which I find extremely odd, as the engine says this is the top move recommended by the engine. So Alekhine says that instead of this f4 move, for whatever reason, he should have played bishop to a4. And after bishop to a4, he says that after queen to d2, he has knight to e4 attacking the queen. And once the queen moves, then he strikes with pawn to g5, saying that in terms of positional aspect, that this is maybe even close to winning for black, which it most certainly is not. It's a dead draw, and the engine says that really anything you play is pretty much a drawish game. So I think him being very, very subjective here when analyzing his game against Capablanca. But he played pawn to f4, which is the top move recommended by the engine, and we've seen this quite a lot, where Alekhine says that okay, maybe I should have played this, when in fact he played the absolute best move. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to mention that. If you are wondering, is this something that can be defended, we could show a nice line where we just maybe trade off a few pieces. Let's say knight to d2. Let's say bishop goes back to c6. Let's say we capture here. Knight captures, bishop captures. Let's say bishop captures, queen captures, and now f3. And it looks like maybe you've opened up your position a bit too much, but it is, it holds without any issues. If anything, the engine says white is better here. But okay, Alekhine for some reason saying that. Pawn to f4, we have g captures on f4, and now bishop to f5. Alekhine trying to outcalculate Capablanca. Here we have queen to d2, and bishop captures on d3. We have e captures on d3, and here again, Alekhine makes zero sense in the book. Here he played knight. He should have played knight to a4. Obviously, the knight is hanging here. Whether you want to call it the knight is hanging because Capablanca already gave up one exchange. Whether you want to call this, sort of a hanging piece or not, or should Capablanca even give another rook for a knight and bishop, then he will be left with two bishops and the knight versus two rooks. Now, it's common to have like a bishop and the knight versus a rook, but a bishop and knight versus two rooks, that is extremely odd. And Alekhine says that he sort of had a blind moment here, that he just should have played knight to a4, and the game continues. Like if queen to c2 attacking the knight, he can play b5, and then whatever you play, okay. But it doesn't take a genius to spot that this knight is definitely out of the game, and it will not be joining the game anytime soon. But you could play knight to b2, but still, it just looks it looks very odd. And then maybe you trade here, maybe you get the queen, maybe you start picking off pawns on the queen side. So it's more dangerous than Alekhine makes it seem. He just says he has a blind moment here, and that he played pawn to c5 instead. Okay, Capablanca does not think twice. He plays rook captures on c3, bishop captures, queen captures, and now queen to f6. Immediately, Alekhine offers a queen trade, and in terms of material, two rooks are better than two bishops and the knight. But in terms of the position being as closed as it is, the two rooks are worth basically nothing, because rooks need open files to be useful. So Capablanca very happily traded queens here. We have g captures, obviously to control the knight a little bit, and now Capablanca played knight to d2. We have pawn to f5 by Alekhine, pawn to b5, we have pawn to a5, and now comes knight to f1. We have king to f7. As you can see, there's very little way that Alekhine can get to those rooks into the game. We have knight to g3, king to g6, and now bishop to f3, going after bishop to h5 check to end the game on the spot. Rook to e7 and king to f1. We have king to f6, and here bishop to d2. Well, maybe just putting bishop on this very, very long diagonal. And the problem is, in those days, you had to somehow adjourn the game, and you would have to continue the game on the next playing day, and every game was played until 6 p.m. But in this position on move 37, Alekhine was deep in thought, and Capablanca was not at the board, as Capablanca is usually just strolling around. But he wasn't just strolling around. Capablanca already actually left he left the tournament because the games finish at 6 p.m. And Capablanca knew that Alekhine would have to seal the move. He would have to put his move in an envelope, and then he would have to, show the envelope give it to the arbiter. The arbiters would, share the envelopes on the next playing day, and Alekhine would be forced to play that move. But after thinking and overthinking, Alekhine did not finish at 6 p.m. He was thinking for 15 minutes extra, so to 6:15 p.m. and then he didn't seal the move in an envelope. He actually played it, king to g6, and then it was a pretty big commotion. No one knew what to do here because the move was supposed to be sealed, and now it's Capablanca's move, and Capablanca, should he play a move? Should he now seal the move? What to do here? And here the organizers requested politely from Capablanca if he would be the one to seal the move, and Capablanca said, of course, and he sealed pawn to a4 without much thought. As Capablanca was extremely quick to make moves, but Alekhine never even continued the position. So it went to the sort of the appeal board, and then it was there for a couple of days, but then they decided that okay, the game will be continued from this position, that there's nothing they can do about it. But Alekhine said that he will not be continuing this game, as there is very, very little that he can do, if anything. Few more moves, and the bishop coming to c3, those rooks are never becoming active. Let's say you play, if you play something like rook to e8, bishop to h5 wins the rook. So obviously the rook is not touching e8. What else can you play? You can play some moves to maybe waste time, but you're never getting this. The bishop covers that. This bishop is coming to c3, so you will have even less moves. The king not having any squares, bishop to h5 can be played at any point, and the bishop can come to c6. This would be torture. Alekhine would be submitting himself to torture here, and he does not want any part of this. But yeah, you see a very, very rare situation where we have three minor pieces versus two rooks, but the rooks are completely helpless, and Alekhine wants no part in this. So yeah, very, very interesting game, and very interesting that, like I said, Alekhine just sort of scolds Capablanca in his book, saying, no, should have played better, should have played better, should have played better. And then when Capablanca outplays him, Alekhine just says, we're basically making excuses for himself, which is not cool. We all know how strong you are, but you're not Capablanca. And it's okay. I understand that there are mixed feelings about this in the chess world, whether Capablanca was better, whether Alekhine was better, at which point in their lives who was better. I personally think that Capablanca was better at every point in time, like that, except obviously for their World Chess Championship match. But it's it's like when Kasparov faced Kramnik. No one in the world thought that there was even a slight chance that Kramnik beats Kasparov, and then Kramnik defeated Kasparov without Kasparov winning a single game. That's just how strong the Berlin defense was. A rematch never happened, and we will never know. But it'd be cooler if Alekhine had allowed for a rematch to take place, but he didn't. He lived a good life for the full decade, but now he finally faced Capablanca, and Capablanca showed him who's boss. And this is not the last game they will ever play. They will play two more games in the Avro tournament, the legendary Avro tournament, won by none other than the great Mikhail Botvinnik. But yeah, we're also going to discuss that. Probably will be a part of the Botvinnik saga, once I get to it at one point. And also, I will share the final standings of this tournament just to see, for you guys to have an idea of how strong the tournament was. So it was a shared first place between a young future world champion, 24-year-old Mikhail Botvinnik, and Capablanca. They shared first place with 10 out of 14 points, and Botvinnik finished the tournament undefeated. 6 wins, 0 losses, and 8 draws, and Capablanca had 7 wins, 1 loss, and 6 draws. Immediately after beating Alekhine in this round, Capablanca lost his next game. It was a pretty interesting game against Solomon Floor, where Capablanca had to sacrifice the exchange in order to survive the attack, and he thought probably that he would just equalize at some point, but Solomon played an incredible game and he defeated Capablanca. It was Capablanca's only loss in the tournament, but enough for Botvinnik to clinch share the first place. Otherwise, it would be obviously Capablanca on 11. Yeah, then we had reigning world champion Max Öve, also very much in form, as you can see, 9.5 points out of 14. Ruben Fine, 9.5 out of 14. Samuel Reshevsky, 9.5 out of 14. And Alekhine, 9 points. So it's not that he played terrible. He played good chess, but the loss to Capablanca meant that he was going to be behind on... if not for the loss, he would be the one, maybe if he defeated Capablanca, sharing first place with Botvinnik. And I will just check real quickly. Let me just check this. I don't know who was the person that defeated Alekhine other than Capablanca. Let me just check this real quickly. He lost to Alekhine, then Alekhine got 4 draws in a row. And then he also lost in round 7 to Reshevsky in 61 moves. Okay, so definitely not Alekhine's tournament, but I mean, you could hardly say that. 9 out of 14 and the winners got 10 out of 14. It's just that everyone was so close with 9.5. Looks like, 6th place, terrible, but it's really not. Then Salomon Floor and Emanuel Lasker, former world champion Emanuel Lasker, also on 8.5. Also, 6 wins, but yeah, it was a very, very close tournament. Milan Vidmar 6, Bogolyubov, Saveli Tartakov 5.5. Theodore Tyler, I have no idea who this gentleman is, on 4.5. Connell, Hugh O'Donnell, Alexander, also 3.5 out of 14. George Thomas, 3 out of 14, and William Winter, 2.5 out of 14. If you have an idea that maybe he's somehow related to chess historian Edward Winter, he's not. Even though they both obviously are into chess, but they are not related. Excellent game by Capablanca, and like I said, I would also very much like to cover this, both from Capablanca's perspective, but also as a new challenger has entered the equation. Young Michael Botvinnik, 10 out of 14, 0 losses, 6 wins. Also, definitely a tournament to cover, to check out the games of young Michael Botvinnik. Because whenever anyone mentions Botvinnik or talks about Botvinnik, it's mostly from the Petrosyan era or Spassky era or the Bobby Fischer era, but not talking so much about young Botvinnik. And his games when he was younger were very, very interesting. So I would very much like to cover this, but then again, I don't want to ruin a future saga by doing it prematurely. But we'll see how it goes. I'll see what I come up with, but that's why you guys are here. I read all of your comments, so use that hashtag suggestion, and if it's a nice idea, I will definitely consider it. Sorry for a bit of a longer video, but we've been waiting for this for a long time. Not as long as Capablanca, but we've been waiting for a long time. I would like to thank Brian Baker, Michael Santos, Ryan Canus, Isaac Pino Catadao, and Everett Mulder for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And I forgot to mention, even though Alekhine didn't think much of Capablanca in this game, he did praise him. Those are the last words in his book. Regarding this game, White's last 6 moves were good, and 6 moves ago, the queens were traded off, and basically Alekhine is saying that Capablanca is a pretty good endgame player. And I mean, yeah, of course, we know that. See you soon, guys.